I
Yeah.
can't make any promises with that now.
Yes. I can also edit out anything too if anything happens that you're embarrassed about. But anyways, I think what I did last time, which I think I'll do it again this time, since it's a relatively small group, is let's kind of go around the room and just introduce yourself, where you're based, maybe your code experience from a level of 1 to 3, and then yeah, any other fun facts you want to share about you, your work, projects working on? Just keep it pretty high level. So yeah, want to start with Juiced?
Hi guys.
Hey.
I've been programming for a long, long time, not as a profession, but still 4, 5, 6 hours a day. Mostly database type of things. Lately, a lot of spreadsheets because it's just really easy to manipulate data rather than in a database. Depends a little bit on what you want to do with it, but I was attracted to Google by the phrase throw away your spreadsheets, something like that. And it's actually worked out a little bit different, but doing right now something. I have a club. It's a paragliding club. It's a paragliding school actually. So that's not really my main work, but that's what I kind of live for. And we run an airfield where paragliders start and land all day long. And we've automated that rather than communicating by radio, like a CB type radios. We communicate through Coda now, and it's really nice because we keep our records that way. We have cut out, I'd say, about 80 or 90% of the radio communications. But it's tricky because it has to be real time. There's a lot of things going on. It's dangerous to a certain extent, and it's kind of nice to make that work. So that's what I'm working on, and then I do some stuff on the side for the company I used to work for. Well, that's pretty much me.
Cool. And you're in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Al. You may have seen me if you've come to some of our previous meetups. I'm a solutions architect at Coda. I basically help our users and some of our customers build their docs, and also try to get new users to the platform. And yeah, doing these meetups is kind of one of my little side passion projects. So I really just enjoy doing them and meeting folks in the community. And I'm based here in New York City. Maria, want to go next?
I do. Hey, I'm Maria. I recognize all of your names, so I'm sure that you've attended one of my webinars or seen me in our Coda videos. I'm our customer educator, so I really focus on creating virtual events for folks to drop into and learn more about Coda, and also just trying to demystify something that some folks think maybe, oh, it's not for me because it's all technical and blah, blah, blah. But I really just am passionate about helping everybody be able to find kind of their way with the tool and to solve the problems that are part of their work and life, even if they're not a programmer by nature. Right now, my current Coda doc that I'm working through is something I use to manage audiobook production. So when I'm not at Coda, I'm still talking. But in this case, I'm narrating audiobooks, and I have a whole Coda doc for all the books that I'm currently working on that allows me to not only have the production schedule, but also for each book, have each chapter, the summary, a lookup table to every character that appears in the chapter, and then also a lookup table to the character table, which has a link to their audio file, which is their voice samples. As I'm recording, I can go be like, oh, what does, Meb sound like again? Oh, she sounds like that. Great. And that's been really fun to kind of work and tweak with that whole project plan. So that's me. Al, who's next?
I have, I'm just going based on what I see on Zoom. So Diane.
Yeah, do your thing, bud.
Hi, I'm Diane. I'm based in New York and I work in travel. I do travel planning for families, sort of, I hesitate to say it, but it's sort of more upscale, customized, curated type travel. So I have started to build a sort of an itinerary management document. There's a tremendous number of details that go into these itineraries, and so I've started that, and it's getting there. I have it so that it automatically backs up on the weekend, and I got 2 messages yesterday that 2 of my Integromat connections aren't working now. So not sure what that's all about, but you know, those are sort of the little nits that I don't know, I find frustrating. Not your fault, mine, but you know, just but it's definitely has the possibilities of really, I think, helping a lot of people in my company. And I don't know, I'm hoping to get it further down the road at some point. It's a challenging time now because the industry has been so hard hit. And so I'm trying to use my time productively, but I get paid based on what I book. So had some booking,
Totally.
but it's definitely not been the most lucrative time in this industry. But I'm hoping to get this going, and maybe some of my colleagues will be interested in it as well.
Yeah. Also, Diane, I know that we have a feature that you're going to be really happy about in like a couple weeks. I'm very excited for you.
I'm waiting.
I've been thinking of you. So
Yeah.
stay
Can't
tuned.
imagine what that might be.
What could it be? I don't know.
I don't know.
Any chance of a sneak peek?
I actually, I think it's on staging, but I would have to check with the PM before I could show it. So let me go ahead and Al, on the back end, I can check with the PM about that and see if we can show the one that I know that Diane's going to love.
Cool.
So.
Cool.
Let's go to, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Vasil.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm from Ukraine. I'm a software developer here in Ukraine, working on Python mostly, and trying to move to machine learning side, and time to time have some research tasks. And actually, I'm looking for some not code solutions like its project, and want to know more about it.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming. Let's move to James.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi, guys. In Surrey, in the UK here, work at a fintech. I'm the IT manager. We've recently started using Coda as a sort of value add on top of Google Docs to get some bit more interactivity and some sort of more engagement features into what are otherwise sometimes quite dry documents. We've tried pushing the boundaries. We have an entire room or seat booking system for our office now, for because we have a reduced capacity, so people have to go to a Coda doc and log themselves in next to a seat, which has been pushing it quite hard, because we have sort of date drops down and buttons which change color on seat availability. And then even little toggle switches for if they're bringing a pet in, so everyone else knows. So yeah, just looking to see what else we can do.
That sounds like a great doc to publish, because I feel like you're probably not the only person who's dealing with this kind of hybrid office model.
Yeah. It's an interesting. It was a tough ask. Because I did it based on zones and number of seats that are available, and then I got told no, we need to change it into an absolute sort of you are booking an individual desk. So yeah. So and the other thing that we're really sort of pushing sort of Coda on is because of its versatility, is seeing if we can displace or reduce the usage of other sort of SaaS apps. So there's 1,000,001 sort of task tracking sort of things that various departments use. We're just trying to bring that and consolidate our license usage under Coda. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Moving on to Jean-Pierre, another one of our community champions.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Jean-Pierre. I am one of the early adopters of Coda. Main reason why I started to work with Coda was I wanted to learn something about programming. I'm a little bit too old to start as programmer, but I wanted to catch up with some basic skills on this. Next to that, I use Coda at companies. At least I introduce this product at companies so they can use to improve their business processes and also the relation with their employees. This is something what is for me, with my background, yeah, some interesting part, and I want to develop more on that. And today I've signed a contract with a Swiss company, and maybe I can convince them to start using Coda. They have about 1,500 employees here in Bulgaria. And they are enthusiastic for what I showed about what are the possibilities of Coda. So God knows what the future will bring.
Awesome. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
All right. Next, Monisha.
Hi, I'm Monisha. I am in Bangkok right now in Thailand, so a little bit far away. I am an operations strategist, operations strategy consultant. So I work with a lot of clients independently, and I basically help people structure their business, their processes, their teams, their day-to-day. And so I've been recommending and setting up Coda docs for a lot of my clients for team onboarding and training, or documenting processes, and just project management tools, and just as a way to keep track of everything. Outside of consulting, I also run a nonprofit, and I've moved a lot of my team that doesn't like anytime I introduce a tech tool to them, they're like, why another one? But I got them all on Coda for everything, and they were like, oh, we love this one. So that was really nice to actually hear them say that. So it's been a lot of fun introducing Coda to a lot of people, because I have a big handful of clients, and then also my own teams, and getting to play around in that. So I've been enjoying that a lot.
Cool.
Love
And
it.
yeah, thanks for staying up late as well. I know it's a little bit late over there for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Coda after dark.
After hours with Coda.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get more involved, but it's so busy lately, which is not a bad thing for me, because yeah, right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. On to Connor.
How's it going, guys? I'm Connor. I'm here in Colorado Springs, just south of Denver. And I've been playing with Coda since basically the very beginning. I remember, is it pronounced Malika or Malika? Helped me build the first inventory doc way back at the beginning to track all of our inventory in our company. It was before they even had lookups, so you had to do everything manually. And so by now, I think I'm on my 4th inventory doc that I've built as new features have come out. And even right now, if I seem distracted, it's because I'm building a new doc to manage all of our operations. We do a lot of device deployment, and so we have to order the things and assemble them and then deploy them. And we're doing it all in Coda. We do all of our meetings in Coda, and we do. So yeah, we're a Coda run company from the bottom up. I love it.
Sweet.
Us too.
All right. I guess a few more folks joining. Probably gonna mispronounce this. Ashuk. Do you want to come on camera and introduce yourself quickly?
Hey there. My name's Amrit. Hey. So I'm joining from Syracuse, New York, and I just saw the link for the event on Product Hunt, and that's how I joined. I've actually heard of Coda before. I know that's like a all-in-one document place, so I just want to know more about it, and that's why I joined this event.
Cool. Thanks for coming. And then Michael. Michael, you there? He just joined, so maybe he went to get a cup of coffee or something.
Just get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
While we wait for Michael, I have been given permission from Khan, our awesome product manager, to show this feature. Just a little sneak peek. So this is something that we are currently still doing internal testing before we open it up for beta. But I always think of Diane, because anytime Diane would attend one of my webinars, she would ask me about, when is this feature coming? So here it is, Diane's feature. The client is Maria Marquis. And maybe Diane has put together a really great itinerary and wants to have some kind of file attachment. Well, in the past, she couldn't do that. But now we could change this column type. And instead of having it be just an image file, you can also just do regular files. So here I could choose a file and it'll pull it up, and now it's got that same look of that uploaded file. Let's see, Evelyn Ingram. Sorry, my big giant golden retriever has something to say about it. Here, maybe we do the Ashley Taylor's resume. There we go. Now it's linked there. I could then see the sort of basic details on it. I can then click it and it previews just like we saw for our image files. You could then do the same kind of interaction of add new, downloading, deleting. Again, this is still internal, so it looks like it's not fully resolving, but this is the flow that we're looking at. And this is going to be, you know, for PDFs, other file types, it's kind of the catch-all for everything that's not an image. So that's something that we're hoping to make available in the next couple weeks. It really just depends on doing some internal testing, because we want to make sure that we're keeping in mind security, vulnerabilities, and really kicking the tires on that as well. So that is coming. It's very soon. I'm very excited about it for myself as well. But yes.
I guess you're looking at all your beta testers right now.
Yes, exactly. I know. So keep an eye out on the community, because once we are ready for all of our beta folks, we'll definitely announce it there. But we're doing that just some first work of, you know, really just making sure that we're, you know, anytime you upload a file into something, like, you have to be really conscious of the security aspects. So that's the first step. And then we'll be making it available out there. Good question, Paul. As far as the limits, I believe it's going to have the same limits as the image format. I think that's the case. I can't quite remember, but I will. If you have any questions that you want me to send to the PM or some feedback to the PM, she said, please let me know. So feel free to pop into chat any sort of questions, ideas that you want me to send her way, and I can make sure that I close the loop with that. But of course, we'll be doing a community beta per usual. But yeah,
I think
that's that.
I think the team said they're gonna see how people are using it and like see what sizes of PDFs and attachments people are using, and then kind of start putting in soft limits there. But yeah,
cool.
I think that's what they said. But we're gonna obviously get the community beta out first, so people that want to participate, we can kind of see how they're using and get the kind of a sense of like their usage patterns before we put like a specific limit. Sweet.
And also, just a note, like, this is still something that's internal, so please don't start sharing it outside of our group today. I got special permission, so please do make sure we got that. Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh, Connor, what's up?
What happened?
I think I saw you raising a hand.
Oh, no, I applauded.
Oh. Okay.
Raising a hand.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Didn't
I was
know
like,
you
do I
could
have
do
like
that.
an unhappy face on, or what's going on? I was also working on my.
All right. Well,
cool.
Wanted to save the man of the hour for the end, since Paul will actually be discussing some of his, well, to talk about his background, how he got into Coda, some docs he's built. And so wanted to open the floor for Paul to kind of share his story. And of course, if anyone has questions on the way, feel free to ask questions in the chat or just come off mute. But wanted to give Paul a chance to kind of share some of what he's done in Coda. If those of you who are on our community forum, you probably have seen Paul's docs, which are truly amazing. I know, like us employees, we share his docs internally all the time and think about how he was able to do these things. So he's definitely pushing Coda to its limits, and it's really interesting to see how the things he built. So we'll let Paul kind of take it away and introduce himself and kind of share his story.
Right. Okay. Hey, everyone, I'm Paul. In case you didn't see me from some of my videos or whatever I posted in the community. Can I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I haven't been to the previous webinar, so I don't really know what's the format overall about these things. But as we discussed, I'm just gonna share my story and hope that it's gonna be like educational from the point of view of a person, how you get there, how you get to this how you get to this state where you're doing creative solutions, not just how we build this or how we build that. So my story is more about how I got where I got. Is it fine?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Cool.
I love it.
So yeah, the long story short, I'm a developer. I used to be a developer. I got pretty burnt out as a developer. I used to do lots of technologies, starting from PHP, JavaScript, Java, Pascal. I did some competitive programming in the past. So I have some solid background in software engineering. And after all of that, I used to work for a company. We used to win an award for a project, and I quit because I just got tired of doing what I was doing there. Then I was doing my own apps, and fast forward to 2018 when I'm kind of stuck with one of my apps. I was building a mobile app. At first it was fine. Like it launched with great success, but I was just really burned out as a coder. The process itself wasn't enjoyable anymore for me. I was like enjoying the result more than the process, and for a coder, that's like a death of the coder, because most of the time you spend in the process building all these tiny things, getting to your result. And yeah, so I was procrastinating, and I was procrastinating on a website called Product Hunt. I guess you all might know that. That's the hot Silicon Valley site where all the startups launch and try to get their piece of their share of spotlight. And I was like, as a person who also published their projects on Product Hunt, I was just hanging around there. And I remember seeing Coda, Coda this, Coda that, but never really paid too much attention. Like there was Notion, there was Airtable, there was Coda. I was not particularly interested in those kinds of things. So it kind of flew under my radar until there was a time where I was procrastinating. I didn't want to do anything to work on my own app anymore. And there was Coda organizing the Makers Festival along with Product Hunt, where they were, I think the prize was a MacBook Air, and I was in dire need of a new laptop, even though I know that you couldn't ship it to Ukraine, even if I won, but I was in dire need of a new laptop, and I decided, well, I'll just give it a try. It looks like a fun thing. So I participated in the context. At first, it was really hard trying to understand, trying to collect my bearings around Coda. The entry barrier was pretty steep, even for a seasoned developer. But I had an idea of mine, one of my first apps that I was building for Android and never got a chance to finish. And I just took it up to try and rebuild it for Coda. And you're looking at this now. It's my first doc ever. So it was a motivation technique that you had to select yourself a challenge, like go for a walk every day, and you set your goals on the weekend, on the weekdays, how many minutes you want to spend on that. And there was this big explanation. That's one of the reasons why this app failed in the first place, is that because it's really complicated, it's really hard to explain. So it's something like a loan. You agree to do this goal, and if you don't meet it, the interest is piling up every day. And if you overdo it, you have some credit that you can spend on some other day. So that's the idea of this doc. But you can see that I put some effort into making it a flow-like setup with different pages, with broken down, the broken down flow, where you go to the first page and then it holds your hand through the whole setup process until, let me just show you the demo, until you get to your dashboard where you can type in the values, and it collects you a big history of things. Like every day you do this, done that. And at that point, this doc already used some clever calculations, like pulling in the previous day, the previous row, to calculate the next row. And yeah, I forgot to mention that it was the dog that I tried to recreate an Excel sheet that I created previously for this technique. So this was my first experience in Coda, trying to recreate an Excel thing. Yeah, and it went pretty well. I think at some point I looked at the community, found some posts that I could use rectangles to build progress bars, and that was it. Like, I built my first dog. It was nothing special really, and I knew at that point that there is a community that has some clever tricks hanging around in some of the threads. So there was me. By the end of the festival, I got a feeling that this won't be enough. Like, this is like fine, but it's nothing particularly impressive. So I started tinkering with Coda and just trying to figure out what else I could do with that. Like, here you already had some clever stopwatch thing that could like add rows, delete rows, and calculate the total, and you could log that to the table. So I already learned some ways to do the modify rows on different tables, how you could just modify basically any cell in the document. So the next thing that I built was the Chatbot engine. I was just curious what else I could do with Coda. And what I did a small experiment, and it was like first of my interesting dogs, a small experiment that you could start the dialogue, and then based on the last replic, the last dialogue piece that the bot shows you, it shows you different options how you can reply to that. And well, it was a really small project to promote my first project and also to promote the app that I was building at the moment. Like, if you click yes, it asks you like, did you participate in the festival as well? Yeah. Cool, what category did you submit to? And if you select life hacks, it tells you, oh yeah, a competitor, my master made another submission, go check it out. And yeah, like, sure, will do. And oh, he will be glad. And also check his app that he was working at. The moment. So it was like just a fun thing to self-promote a bit. And yeah, these dialogues, they chain. They can. They can split into different directions. Like, you can select another reply and it will go into a different direction. Then they can join together and result into the same ending for the dialogue. And I thought it was amusing, you know, and I posted it as a second submission for the festival. One of the challenges that I ran into with this dog is that first I tried to build it with filters. And the problem with filters was that when you selected a reply, the row was still hanging there, just highlighted in yellow that this row is going to be filtered out, but it's still visible for you in case you're still doing something with that. So that's when I tried and rebuilt it with a helper table that just added messages to the chat and populated the helper replies table, so it cleared it out entirely, and that added new rows to the table. And yeah, that's when I realized that I could not just use the tables that I have, but also utilize this helper table, something auxiliary that I don't really need to show to the user. Just I could work with that. Some messages in the chat. Should I check, Maria?
Oh, folks are just saying they love it, and I'm just adding some pro tips. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my second submission. And at that point, when they disclosed that in the festival there were like 120 or something participants, and you had to upvote them. So it was essentially a popularity contest. I realized that I needed to have some backup. Like, lots of folks had a lot of following on Twitter, and I didn't. So at that point, I just went back to the community, registered in the community, and tried to fish for some upvotes. So this was my first post, like, hi everyone, I'm new here. Here's my chatbot, check it out, vote for it, please. And that's how I joined the Coda community.
So for the first doc you built with the penalties and stuff, was that something that you thought of, or was that based on like another framework you've heard of, like with the goals and stuff?
No, it has a very funny backstory to it. So long ago, like 10 years ago or something, there in this doc, there's the story behind this thing. Yeah, I came up with it myself, with how it's calculated, how this chart works. Like it goes, like this chart, it goes up when you like you do more than your goal is. It goes down when you don't reach the goal, even if you cover it from your stash, so-called, or not, and it stays level when you just meet your goal exactly. So I came up with all these algorithms. They are pretty simple, but nonetheless. And there was a thing that long ago I was working on a hobby project of mine. I was making subtitles for one particularly popular cartoon that had a lot of adult following, cult following. And you might know that it was a cartoon about, it was the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic franchise. Maybe you heard of that. So it's a cartoon that was originally targeted at like kids, girls, that became super popular with grown-ups. And I was one of those grown-ups who liked this cartoon unironically, and I was making Ukrainian translation for that cartoon, the subtitles, and I came up with this technique to motivate myself to work on it every day, to translate like 30 lines, at least something, do at least something every day.
How did you get that? I'm curious. How did you get that gig for making translations?
It was not a gig. It was a fan thing. I was doing it for free. The thing is, it was a particularly upsetting year for me. I think I had to give up on my dreams to become a developer of my own, and I applied for a job. That was one disappointing part on that year. Also, there were some problems in the family too, like my mother and my grandmother, they had surgeries. So that thing was, it kept me going, you know, for like half a year until things got better. So it was like a hobby to cheer me up. So that's why I was doing that.
Gotcha. I'm sure many fans in Ukraine are happy that you made those translations.
Well, no, they came up with an official translation like maybe half a year after I started doing it. It was horrible. I did it. Yeah.
I was just saying, oh man, they took it from you.
Yeah, and they did a horrible job. I did a much better translation. I even translated the songs so that you could sing them in Ukrainian. I put a lot of effort. If you haven't figured it out yet, I put a lot of effort into whatever I do. So that's why the blog is still not out there, because I just cannot make it perfect to see the world, the Coda Tricks one. So yeah, that's my curse. That's
perfectionist procrastinator. I think we can all kind of empathize with that. that both of those are a big part of who I am too. So I totally get it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the story. I hope you find it at least a bit amusing. Yeah, so fast forward from that, I didn't win in the Makers Festival, but I think I got into a short list, so I won a Coda t-shirt, some swag, and that's how I got on your radar, I guess. But I didn't stop there. I mean, other contestants, it seems like they just like, oh, we didn't win, and they forgot about Coda. I didn't see them anymore. But I just kept going. I saw that people are posting some interesting stuff in the community, like Phil was posting about their implementation of progress bars and different kinds of curious things. So I decided I should just experiment more with Coda. So one of the first things that I found was that I could actually concatenate rectangles together, and thus get rid of these spaces between the items. So I could just concatenate the rectangles, get one gapless progress bar, and I could build it out of the actual data, and it would update in real time. So I posted that, got its share of love from the community, and some items like built upon this discovery, like the daily bar view or the work log, the tracking, seeing at a glance how each person is available or not, or overbooked through the week. So already some useful application of some trick that I found, right? I think I used it myself. So some people were asking about how to, like, I want to have some graphic representation of how delayed the project is. So first I had a solution with the Gantt charts, but then thought, okay, why not make it more compact? And I reused this trick that I found here to help the person. And that's when I start realizing that I'm experimenting with stuff, but it can be useful, right? It can help people make more joyful docs, something that are more joyful to use and build. And the next big thing, so I discovered that the button cannot press itself, but it can press another button, which can then press the first button, and you can build loops with that. And after that, I hit the Coda community with a snake game. And that was, I guess, my first thing that really blew people's minds. At least, Al, you were blown away, I remember.
Yeah. I think this was like your like viral hit, if I remember.
Yeah, this was my first viral hit. So the actual working snake implementation in Coda using the looping technique, the fact that I could use cells to write whatever data I want into them. It's a bit glitchy, but it works, and you can play it like normally, like you would play a snake. So yeah, it was like first thing, a demonstration that Coda can actually run automata, some code that is more like an actual code. You could not write code, custom code in Coda, but you could make it execute algorithms. You could build algorithms with that, and that gave you endless possibilities. You could calculate anything. If you couldn't calculate it with a simple formula or a simple action, you could build something with a temporary storage table that you would just store data into, then get data out of. And yeah, it was a demonstration that you could do anything in Coda. It would be slow, of course. It would take time to recalculate, but you could do anything. And another big thing, another big milestone at that point was, so there was a person asking how to do some conditional formatting, something. And at that point, I remember that I saw some hidden formulas already, like color and bold. I was curious if I could find a formula to make the background of a cell different, like the conditional formatting. So at that point, I just opened the developer tools, having some background in JavaScript and stuff. I just dug into the JavaScript of Coda, and I found the list of all hidden formulas that Coda had. And I posted it here for everyone to see. I didn't dig into each one of them, but I posted the list and sort of opened the Pandora box. You know, so a lot of undocumented behavior, undocumented things that one could already use to make whatever they wanted to make. And I remember another person, like here's this mega thread of stuff, another person started building on top of that with their own guides, how to use the color formula with whatever colors, not just the hexadecimal ones, but how to use some really hidden stuff. And yeah, so that's where it really went downhill, I would say. So we realized my previous knowledge of how apps are built really helped me here. So I kind of anticipated how it would behave, how Coda would behave if I tried this and tried that. And in 90% of in 90% of cases, 9 out of 10 cases, it really worked as I anticipated. And basically that's how I got my superpower to make and come up with tricks and workarounds. Some previous expertise in all areas of development, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The programming background, the algorithmic programming background helps me come up with algorithms, how to solve problems, how to calculate this and that, break that down into steps. And it really helps. And the overall programming culture, the rules that we follow in traditional programming, I'm trying to map these on Coda as well as best practices, how you organize your tables, how you organize your docs, how you make your schema. All the best practices that I promote, they all come from the programming background. It's what programmers are doing so that they are on the same page when they are working on a huge system. And that's what I'm trying to bring to Coda, the programming, how do you call that? Well, when forgot the word, but whatever. So the strictness of programming culture, the discipline, the programmer's discipline, I'm trying to bring this to Coda. So yeah, that's pretty much the story about, oh, and this one, yeah, so just one more thing, a personal stuff that I feel really proud of. So someone's asking how to make buttons bigger, and I'm just trying to put a big text label into a label of a button, and it works, right? So I just assume that this would work because I know how text is stored and how labels are stored in Coda, and I just try that and this works. And it works so well that it blows Shishir's mind, and he says that just when I think I know Coda well, Paul teaches me something new. And that's the quote that I'm putting on my blog, and I'm particularly proud of.
Yeah, I think when you posted that post with all the hidden formulas and hidden functions, I think a lot of the engineers in our company got a little nervous because we don't officially support them, but they do sometimes kind of work. But I know they were kind of sweating a little bit, so it's good to keep everyone on their toes.
I remember that day. They're like, holy crap, Paul. Oh yeah, I guess that's there too. It was so funny.
It's like, we still have that function? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, I wrote that years ago. Yeah, I love that your attention to tinkering, Paul. It's like, I just want to sit here and see what I find. I just think that's something that we can all take and incorporate into kind of how we learn anything, right? Yeah. Yeah, thanks for joining, everybody. Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it civil. I don't deliberately try to break Coda, or I don't promote breaking Coda. I don't, well, except that one time when I made a permission system that broke the doc if it was a wrong person looking at the wrong piece of data. But that was a joke, I guess. I hope you got it. Anyway, when I'm using this functionality, I'm trying to warn people that it's unsupported, it's hidden functionality. It may help you and you may be happy to have it, but at some point it may break and you won't be happy, and you need to be prepared for that. So, but without those hidden formulas, I think Coda would be at least a few % less enjoyable to work with, because a lot of people were asking for stuff that's only possible with hidden formulas. And I hope that by showing them these formulas, I make some customers happier about the product. So it's not the bad thing to have that. Even though, yeah, we need to be mindful about whether we promote that or not, or whether we just tell people not to rely too much on that, but just show them that, okay, you can have this with Coda. Coda can also do that. I think it's a good thing, right?
For sure.
So do you have any questions at this point?
Yeah, folks, any questions for Paul? You can pop it into chat. You can also just, we're a small enough group that I think folks can probably just unmute and ask with their mouths too.
I have a question, Paul, for your wizardry. What is the best way to make a dependency graph in Coda? I have a bunch of tasks that rely on one another, modules. I've seen some of your posts about it, but now I got to ask you in person.
I need to, well, I cannot tell you right away. I need to look into your specific setup to be able to give you a well-educated opinion on that, because yeah, all people do their task management differently, and that's one of good things about Coda. You can go totally bespoke with what you do. So yeah, I need to know a bit more about that, about your specific case. Feel free to share your doc with me, or just book a session with me. I can send you a Calendly link or whatever. As you might know, I do consulting, but my first hour, the introductory call, I don't charge for that, so you can take advantage of that if you wish. So yeah, but I need to look into that. I need to, what I do usually when I'm consulting for someone and I'm trying to help someone in the community, of course, I don't have this luxury to understand the specifics of what the person needs. I can only like take what they wrote at face value and try to deduce if they are what they are actually trying to do. But no, that's why my community answers, I love answering in the community for free, and with the answers that are like as universal as possible and can help a lot of people. So I'm trying to just answer in the most universal way possible, so that it's applicable to the most general case. But if you're asking what's the best way to do the dependency graph, I assume you mean what's the best way for your specific scenario that you're working on. And for that, I need a bit more specificality. I need to look into your specific project to advise you on the best for your case.
Makes sense. Yeah, I didn't know if there was already a known solution, but I'll reach out or post something.
There is no best way to do anything or no universal way to do anything. You need to take into account lots of things, like how connected it with other things, the performance implications, the long-term performance implications, how it will behave when you have thousands of tasks. Will you be able to archive, to remove the data without formulas, recalculating some summaries and losing some important numbers? So when you start working on actual projects with these actual problems, like it's not as simple as you see in the tutorials with small data sets. So you have to take everything into account. Yeah, and I care about all these things a lot. I don't know if there's lots of other consultants and if they do the same, but I for sure do. So yeah, getting to more to the consultancy thing. So, well, I was doing all of this just for fun. It was a distraction for me. I liked tinkering with Coda. I just liked tinkering with Coda. And I remember at some point, I think it was you, Maria, or maybe it was someone else, or maybe it was earlier than this thread. Someone from Coda reached out to me and said, well, okay, we have a lot of people, a lot of customers who are looking for freelancers who would build a doc for them. Looks like you know Coda well. So would you like to take up some gigs for helping people do some paid doc building for hire? And at the moment, my app was stalling. I wasn't making really any money out of it. So I was still living with my grandparents, which I'm not particularly proud of, but I'm thankful for the fact that I could just try different things without having to worry about the food on my table. Yeah, so naturally I was interested, like, why not apply what I'm doing already for free? Why not apply this and help someone and earn some money with it? So there was this initiative by Coda to have some job board where a directory of freelancers who would be available for hire, which in the end didn't really work out for some reasons. There were lots of there were like, I think 30 people registered for this board. But what I remember is that while I was waiting for it to go live, someone in the community was already looking for a freelancer, and I decided, well, why not have a head start? I would just contact that person and offer my services. Why wait for this board? I can just try already. And yeah, it was a long-term client, and it was a really nice gig, and I helped. I think it was a startup, something like helping mothers who just became mothers deal with their stress. Yeah, and then those were the mothers who didn't go on the maternity leave they kept working on, and it was a website offering some psychological help, something like that, mindfulness, all of that. So they were using Coda as a CRM to organize their courses and articles and everything about the users of that board. And yeah, I built it with Coda and Zapier, and the database was actually the MySQL. So Coda was just a front end to put the data into MySQL, and ultimately they migrated away from Coda. But it was a first gig, and it was a nice one. And I realized that, yeah, I could do this not for free, but I could actually make a decent living with that. And that's when I moved out into this apartment that I'm in right now. So, and also Maria, I just have to thank you, because if it was not for you and for that focus group call, I wouldn't have the balls to charge the amount that I'm charging now. So we all had this in Ukraine, we don't know how much we are worth here. Actually, everyone treats Ukrainian coders as not super cheap, but cheapish workforce, something that people who are willing to work for like $30 an hour, $20 an hour, maybe even less experienced people would take $5 an hour work from the freelancing boards. And I remember in that call, I had the balls to ask you how much you would charge for the consulting work like that. And you told me the number that was like 3 times more than what I was going to ask for myself. So I immediately thought, oh, well, if you're saying that number, I can go like 30% lower and ask for that already from the start. Why not? And
yeah. I love that. Yeah, and I think knowing what we're worth and being bold enough to say like, this is what I need is huge. Yeah, I'm so glad. Yay, Paul. Woohoo.
So yeah, that's how I got myself into a niche of relatively highly priced work, but I believe that I provide the value for that work, because I only track time for the actual time that I'm actually working on the docs, or I'm attending the calls that I need to be actively present at. I'm stopping the timer whenever I get distracted or go into the community or do some research, or the project just spins at the back of my head and I'm doing something else, still thinking of the project. So I'm naming a quite high price for my services. But at the same time, if I really enjoy working for the client, I would be happy to just give away some time for free or do some feature for free or whatever. So that helps me filter out low low value work, like just making some tables or typing in some data and working with clients who really need the above and beyond stuff, something non-trivial. And that's kind of my niche now. I'm doing some really non-trivial things, non-trivial, really complicated schemas, trying to understand the client's operations and helping them and even telling them what they need, not just working by the task list, like at this table, at that table. I don't do that. I usually reject work like that. So I try to understand about the client's business, his operations, what he ultimately or she or they ultimately need, and then suggest how this should look and what the UI should be and what the schema should be and all these, like the creative side of things. So that put me in, thanks to you, I'm in that niche, not something low value. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Hey, Paul, I was wondering, as a consultant, I mean, I think a lot of other consultants that I know, like they are experts in many different fields and, you know, programming languages and platforms. Do you feel like specializing in Coda and only Coda, like, do you ever get requests to do other things? Because I'm sure as you're talking to a business, they're probably like, oh, can you, since we're doing this in Coda, like, can you have this talk to my, you know, backend database and have this talk to my other mobile app? How do you handle that kind of engagement?
Actually, I didn't have that many requests for that. Most of the requests were for just back office stuff, CRMs, nothing really connected. Nothing that Zapier couldn't handle or Integromat couldn't handle. Like the first project, yeah, it was, the idea was that, and actually I told these people that they knew that they would eventually migrate out of Coda into something more web app-like. They chose Bubble for their development. So I knew that they had to have something more substantial than Coda, and we had a MySQL database on AWS that Bubble was ultimately connected to. Yeah, I made a lot of zaps to build a two-way sync between the Coda and the MySQL, so that the data that was added to MySQL would get synced back into a Coda table, and whatever is added to the Coda table would get synced into MySQL. Yeah, it took some time to build that. I think it was something like 70 zaps, 5 zaps a table to facilitate that. But we did it, and it worked for them well until they decided to move away from Coda. I almost had a request to connect Coda. I made a very complicated Coda calculator that I almost had to replicate sheets, so that you understand, each cell of the sheet would be a row of itself in Coda, and you had to programmatically program how each row would be calculated differently based on some criteria. So it was a really complicated doc, and they wanted to use it as a front end or as a generator backend for their website. But then the COVID happened, and they kind of disappeared, and I never had a chance to do that. So that's the story there. Mobile apps, no one asked for that. I usually tell clients that it's stupidity that they want to do that. So they need something else. I mean, I'm not trying to get every piece of job and tell, oh yeah, Coda this, Coda that, Coda that. I try to be realistic and tell people that, okay, you shouldn't use this for your case. You shouldn't use Coda to build your website. It's not a website builder. You should look elsewhere. It's an interactive doc. You can do this, that with that. If you're fine with embedding it as an iframe or whatever, then okay, we can have this, and that, but there are still these limitations with security, with access control, with visibility of hidden stuff, that everyone can have access to whatever's in the doc. So I explain everything to people so that they know that, okay, we can or we cannot use that.
We also had a question here. Paul, are you familiar with Upwork? And I know we've talked about TopTool before in our conversations, but it'd be interesting to hear about kind of how you think about managing your work with some of those platforms that are meant for kind of folks working on their own.
Okay, TopTool, I wouldn't work with it in the world, not in my life. I tried to apply for it once. I had a really bad experience with how they treat their freelance work. It's not really a freelancer site. It's more like a big sweatshop of people that think they are freelancers and are, well, okay, I don't want to incriminate anyone. I'm already talking too much, but I don't like this site. I wouldn't work for them. Upwork, I personally don't see the need for registering on Upwork. I don't look for clients. Clients find me. I'm in this position that everyone sees my answers in the community and they kind of work for me. I already have this visibility. So like recently I had a client, a new client, we had an introductory call and they just told me that we went on the community and then we saw a lot of like questions unresolved for a while, and then comes Paul and solves it and the person is happy. So we naturally decided to contact you. And that's mostly how I find work, how work finds me. So I don't see why I should give a cut to Upwork for being the middleman if I don't really need to have a presence there. I might have a presence there just so there's a presence of me, but I mean, just so that people can find me through there, or some Coda developer through there, but never really thought it was worth putting the effort for me now.
I like that you bring up this idea that, you know, because our community is just there, and you can post your docs and everything, it's kind of like a full resume, right? Like anybody can see your style, how you approach things, what you do, and that's great that is sufficient. I love that.
Yeah, that's one thing. And another thing is the blog that I'm trying to publish in the coming days. It's also gonna be like, there's for Notion, there's this site notion.vip, right? VIP, right? So it's run by some consultant who gets gigs from this site. It also features different Notion tricks, and he also advertises himself there. He's doing paid job, whatever. So the website will have two functions. First, it will generalize and make it more easy to access this plenty of information and tricks and approaches, make it more searchable, approachable, and also advertise my services and hopefully in the future the services of my small agency.
Cool.
So any other questions? There's a few things I just wanted to show and you might be familiar with. So at that point, when I started doing paid work on real projects, I started learning more about the real world use of Coda. So dealing with real world problems like docs with lots of data, trying to optimize that. So I already had some head start, and then the thing happens that you call rich get richer, right? So you do the gigs, you learn more about how to work with that, and you can take on more gigs because you know how to do that and how to approach that. And I started recording some videos. So the first one was this one video, how it was recorded before CrossDoc was introduced. It showed how you could sync changes from one doc to other docs using Zapier. And it's an example of that case that we were doing something like that with my first client. And I decided that, okay, why not share this with the community? It's a nice use case. It might help someone. So I recorded a video tutorial on that just in a month or something. crossdock was introduced, so this became obsolete. But still, that's just my approach to things. I don't think that I win by withholding some information that I've learned. I would gladly share it with people, and it doesn't take too much effort to just press record and do a one-take video or type in a post, whatever. I wouldn't put it on my blog like that because it's not perfect, but on a forum, it was fine just to post it on the forum. That's why I'm sharing so much in the forums, but haven't done the blog yet. So yeah, when working with lots of docs, I was coming up with best practices. So I also outlined some of the best practices here in the community in some of the answers, what to do, what to avoid, how to name the columns, how to name the tables, so that it's easier to work with them as you go and you don't get overwhelmed as your dog grows. So I started educating. I thought it was a good idea to start educating people on how to use Coda so that it remains nice and usable when your dog grows. I actually, at some point, I tried to collect all the knowledge that I ever posted in the community and the knowledge that I approached, so that to collect the data, so that I would have something, so that I could then move that to the Coda Tricks blog. But yeah, it's already too much. I think I just stopped at some point collecting the answers. For some few docs that gave me even more notoriety were the discovery of SVG, the thing that you could just feed, you could just generate SVG, the graphics, the expressive graphics. You could generate your code for a drawing in Coda and just feed it to the browser, and it would draw that in an image. So that realization, I just tried to figure out if that was possible with Coda. It's one of those things. Let me just try that and see if it works, and it worked. So you probably have seen this one, the biggest. The biggest dog, the dog that everyone saw, I guess, the mind map implementation in Coda, a custom chart that was totally dynamic out of your data, was calculating in real time and drawing a custom chart. So if you're interested how that's built, you can ask me, although I tried to explain it. And another of those black magic pieces, those black magic docs, was the to-do list that's built. All the to-do list is built with just one row, one table, one row, one page, and it kind of works. This is all just a layout of one row, a single row, and it allows adding items, removing items, editing items, filtering for all users or just me, so like a small to-do list, but all built in just a single row. First, I published it as an April Fool's joke on how to pay less for Coda, how not to pay for rows and tables and objects, but the joke was not well received, so I deleted that and just repurposed it as see how it can be done. So yeah. These are just some of the black magic docs that I did recently. I guess that's like all from me, and I would be glad to answer your questions or just continue the discussion in whatever way you wish.
One thing, and folks, please add your questions for sure. One thing I would love to know, because you've been working in Coda for years, right? And the product has changed so much in that time. What has been something that, maybe it exists now that didn't exist when you first got started, that's kind of your favorite, or the thing that you enjoy the most?
One of the newer features that I enjoy the most, you mean, right? I would say the fact that you can now filter in a lookup column. You have now item settings. Before that, I had to use drop downs. I guess that thing is one of the, you see, I'm more of a practical guy, not the UI stuff guy or something. So it's a practical feature. There has been so many that I don't really remember. Maybe
what
something.
were the dark ages like? I don't remember. I totally get it.
No, I mean, in a year, I think it was pretty mature already a year ago. So when I joined, I definitely cannot get used to the standard content alignment. I always have to go and manually change it to white. I wish this would be my default. I just use white everywhere. The width of the page. I don't use publishing too much, so I don't know. Nothing that would be one that I would name as one particular thing. Locking is nice. Well, locking is nice. I know it's not a security feature, but it helps in real projects. It really helps.
Nice.
Cool.
And then oh, sorry, go ahead, Al. You had something brilliant we're gonna say.
No, I think at the very beginning, when you did your intro, you're saying how like you got burnt out from programming, but at a more high level, like you were talking about how your skill set kind of shifted to be able to be more of a creative type of skill set. I'm curious, when people think about being creative, they think about, painting, drawing, music, but I'm curious how you thought about working in Coda or other tools is flexing your kind of creative muscle.
I think the creative part is the user experience part. You can make a doc that's just plain tables, or you can make it really enjoyable for the end user. What I'm promoting always is to have two views into your doc, the builder's view and the user's view. The builder's view is all those internals, databases, all that stuff that you go to these pages when you want to link data together or add some columns or something. But when the end user, like someone in your organization, is trying to use the doc that you've built for them, they need to have some plain interface where they can just go click a button, enter some data, like this here. It's a display view, and it's meant to show items from a table, but here it is retrofitted to be a sort of a form with some buttons that change their labels with something else. Like, it's maybe not the perfect example because it's the first doc, and I made more stuff further down the road that unfortunately I cannot show to you because it's all been paid work for clients and it's all private. But just thinking about how to make it a good experience for the user, how to organize the fields or where to put the buttons so that it's intuitive for them, how to navigate through the document. There's one document that I would love to show you, but I can't because it's a paid work, it's a private thing, and it has a lot of private information in it, unfortunately. That would tell you what I mean by creative there. But even, I guess, there's also a bit of creativity in programming itself. So there's the mundane work where you just create classes, data structures, and you're writing some boilerplate. And there's also the side where you need to think how you want to design this altogether. You need to think of what entities you have, what concepts you're dealing in your system, and how they relate to each other. And that's the creative side, I would say.
So there's creative aspect on the back end, but also on the front end with like the user experience.
So the user experience, yeah, that's the one thing that I wouldn't give to my to my assistant. And another thing that I would keep to myself is actually thinking about the data structure. If let's say a flowers shop approaches me and asks, make us a CRM, we deal with this and this and that on a daily basis. We do bouquets and we have employees who get a cut of each bouquet that they sell, and these things. And the creative part is thinking through the whole experience, the database, the schema that I would build for them to allow for that experience, and the experience itself, how a person would log on and add the item that they've just sold, and how that would end up in a report for each employee of what they've earned, the commission that they've earned for the end of the month. So all this is creative. Just
Cool. Well, we have 10 minutes left. I just want to thank you, Paul, for sharing your story. Thank you so much. We'll definitely post this to YouTube, so other people can enjoy this in the community. I'll definitely post this in the community. But kind of want to leave the last 10 minutes open to any other questions for Paul, any other topics people want to discuss about Coda or otherwise. Just wanted to keep the floor open for any open topics that people want to talk about. So any other thoughts, questions, ideas?
It's kind of outside of the box, but I was just looking for something on my phone, on the Android phone, changing a document. I'm getting, does that show?
No, it's kind of bright. Can't really see. Yeah.
Well, I'm in my, let me see how I'm going to do this.
maybe move it a bit further from the camera.
Here's my documents.
Didn't help.
I can't see it.
No, okay, it doesn't work. Well, I'm just opening a document and I get a big orange screen, Google warning about Coda hosted.io irregularities.
Al, I was noticing on Slack, this is something it looks like our engineers are taking a look at right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
I just saw it right now because I was looking something up while I was listening. It was kind of related to the things that were being told, but that's fine then.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. My users are not going to understand that. I do have a question to Paul, but maybe also to Jean-Pierre. You're working with companies with a lot of users. This whole concept of working in Coda, and I'm doing it because I want to and because it works, but it's so tricky when you say you want to have a page with, say, default parameters, pricing of your flower shop. And then you got your users that are selling these flowers or making a bouquets or things like that. How can you make sure that the right people are working in the right pages and not breaking down the whole system? Am I clear? Am I making a point?
So how do I design the doc so that people are only using what they are meant to use?
Well, how do you prevent from people that are not meant to use something to go browse around and end up doing things that are not meant to be done by them or not meant to be seen by them? Okay, hiding doesn't work.
Yeah, okay, so I always talk with a client and I explain to them that even though it might be more convenient to do everything in one doc, less overhead overall, everything's in the same doc, everything's recalculated live. It doesn't, so filtering out stuff or locking pages or hiding pages doesn't provide actual security, because you can always copy the doc that you've been shared, that has been shared with you, the one that you can view. You can always copy it, remove all the locking and filters, and access all the data. So I always explain that. And from there, it depends on whether they trust their team that they want to use this doc with, or they don't trust the team. or maybe there's a piece of the functionality that they trust to their team, and then there's another team or some outside contractors that they don't trust. And it's always a balance, right? Finding the right balance of whether to do it the simpler way or try to break it down into separate docs, use the cross doc, and that would ensure that there's clear separation of access. Because you can only, in Coda, you can only restrict access on doc level, not on anything that's in the doc. You can share an individual doc with another person or a list of people. So we always discuss if the audience is tech savvy enough to go and try and break the doc, or do we have some backups in place? Do we actually need to have the cross doc set up for them? Because if we don't, we try to avoid doing cross docs. It's easier and less overhead to keep it in one doc than split it out. But if we need to split it out, we split it out. So we always discuss and find the best solution for a particular situation.
Well, there's the trust part, which you mentioned, but there's also the stupidity part, and you run across both. And the stupidity part is really scary because if it can break down, people will break it down. That's my experience.
Yeah, and for that I try to design I try to design the experiences that are well, obvious things. So I make views. I usually make interfaces in such way that they cannot directly work on the data. They cannot delete rows. They can only press buttons to do something. So if we need to give them, like recently there was a project where teachers were entering their availability and entering away days and stuff, and we didn't want them to delete their events. We wanted to restrict deletion so that we had that in our system, that they first scheduled an away day and then they tried to delete it or whatever. So I had to design a system, a two-tiered system. There was a backend table that they didn't have any access to, and the front-end table that they could delete from, because there is no permission for deletion without the permission to modify values. So they had to be able to modify, but not delete. They could still delete it, but the system would then figure it out that there is a mismatch between the backend and the front-end table, and show them a button to restore and show them a warning that they have some discrepancy in their data. So that's how I deal with stupidity.
Yeah, okay.
So to say. So I try to build interfaces that are self-evident and also have these, if we know there is a high risk of stupidity, we build these in place, these things that would alert us or them that they did something stupid.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm still learning, and I guess I have to play with it a lot to really figure it out, because I ended up with some of the background tables where the default data was being changed by people just keep on hitting the screen and eventually ending up 3 tables down in the system and changing things. And yeah, it's not always really obvious how to prevent that, but I guess I have to keep on learning.
I will say that permissions bit is interesting, and it's something that, you know, if I think about sitting with our engineers, it's not like something, say, like a traditional file system where, you know, this part yes, this part no, because there's all this potential for like table interaction. So I've seen them sitting there and be like, okay, so where is the unit of measure, and then how do we make that really clear? I would say if you're dealing with like a core data set, like cross-doc is a really good way, like Paul was saying, having like your core information in one doc that then you pull in so that that's not editable by the folks who are then interacting with how that data populates the rest of it. But yeah, it is a little bit stickier because it does kind of go against what we traditionally have in our minds around kind of data hierarchy, right? So I definitely empathize with that.
Yeah, I guess we all agree on this. True.
All right. Well, I think this is going to conclude today's meetup. thanks again for everyone sticking around for the full hour and a half. We'll have this
Yeah.
recording available so you can see and listen to all of Paul's great wisdom at any point in time. And looking forward to seeing you at next month's meetup, and also codetricks.com. I know Paul has mentioned that quite a few times, and I'm personally looking forward to seeing when this comes out. Seeing our own version of like the Notion VIP newsletter, I suppose. Yep. Thank you again, and have a good afternoon, good night, and maybe good morning for some of you. But
thank you all for sharing all this information. It's really useful. It helps. Thanks.
Thank you for
so much.
See you next time.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, everybody. Thank you,
Bye, everyone.
Paul.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.